So you might be wondering why I just sacked my rook in this game and in this position. Well, it's a long story. I'm going to show you where it all started, how it came to be. So bear with me. Let's take a look at the infamous rook sacrifice in chess. All right, here we go. The game starts off with the Caro-Kann. You also might be wondering, why am I wearing a jacket inside my own house? Well, you would too if your heater was broken and it was like minus 1,000 degrees. So anyway, don't really want to talk about it, but just kind of had to say it. All right. So bishop f5, this is known in the Caro-Kann. This is actually the main line. And right here, I actually didn't play the main line. I didn't continue into the main line. The main line is actually h4 here, h5. The bishop has to go away. I'm playing this is a bullet game, by the way. Having some fun, just trying to change things up a little bit. So I played bishop d3 first. And he exchanges bishops. He plays knight d7, c3. So you'll notice in the Caro-Kann that we always have, no matter what variation, we usually just play this. We have this pawn formation. It's good to know if you're playing against the Caro-Kann. Okay, I castle kingside, and I'm developing my pieces. As you'll notice, I'm very big on developing pieces. I try to make chess as easy as possible for people. Chess is hard enough as it is. There's no need to talk over people's heads and, try to confuse them any more than they're already confused. So it's simple as that. Develop your pieces, look for your opponent's threats. Your rating will improve, and work on your tactics. Okay, so I developed my last piece into the game. Rook e1, and here is the rook bearing down on this pawn. Now, there's a lot of talk lately about the rook sacrifice. I know it's become like a meme lately, and for good reason, though. It's not just some catchy phrase, sack the rook, right? There's a reason why the rook sacrifice is probably the best. Not the fanciest, that's the queen sacrifice. That's the most bold sacrifice you can make in chess. You can't sacrifice the king because that's getting checkmated. If that's the case, I have a lot of king sacrifices. But sacrificing the queen is not as common. It's the easiest piece to sacrifice because you have the most opportunity. It covers the most squares. You can get rid of it. But then what's your follow-up? You don't have a major piece to follow it up with. Whereas the rook, you can sacrifice it, and you have the queen on the board to follow up with it. So the rook is very powerful sacrifice because it's very easy to sacrifice the rook. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to show you in this position what happened in this game. Okay, I play knight h5 here. I'm just bearing down on g7. Another good idea, always attack your opponent's king position. Try to get rid of his pawns, his fortress, as I call it, in front of his king. c5 is a misstep. You want to counter in the center when your opponent's attacking the king side, but this is too slow, and I'm just winning a pawn here and attacking the rook. So that's just not good. My opponent moves away. I attack the knight. The knight comes back. He didn't really have a good plan, I guess. I mean, if he comes back here, he gets destroyed. So he can't do that. If he comes back here, I guess I just come back here and, he can't take because I'll take the rook and I'm threatening to come here check with checkmate. So he probably didn't want to play that. So he comes here, he gives away his knight, but he trades the bishop. So it was a pretty good move, I thought, in a way. But here I have the rook sacrifice. Now, why is the rook sacrifice so cool, so common? Well, ironically, because the rook is so powerful. Now, one of the reasons why the rook is so powerful is because it can sacrifice itself easily. Now, why can it sacrifice itself easily? Well, because it covers a lot of squares. It's not as easy to sacrifice the knight because a lot of times you can't sacrifice it. It only hits a certain amount of squares, and you might not be hitting anything to sacrifice. Same thing with the bishop. In this case, the knight can sacrifice itself, but that wouldn't be a good move, really, because you have no follow-up. But the rook is always very easy piece to sacrifice because it's covering a whole, it covers a lot more territory, a lot more ground. So for that reason, it can cause a lot of destruction. Now, all you have to do is put your rooks on open files like they should be, so they do cover the most territory, the most ground that they can. And you always want to look for your forcing moves here. So how did I find this rook e6 move? Well, simple. I calculate, right? So it's a forcing move. I look at it. Now, if he takes, that would be a major mistake because we have checkmate in 4. If he goes to king h8, we have knight h5. Try to stop checkmate. Let's say this. We have knight f6. Now try to stop checkmate. These two spots. Can't do it. It's impossible. You can't guard both mating threats. Let's say after, this, he comes here. Well, that's mate on the spot. And you'll see in a little bit, spoiler alert, checkmating pattern, just like that happens. So anyway, that's if he can take. So if he can't take, I just win a pawn. So I took the pawn. So what if he doesn't take? Well, that's what he didn't. In the game, he actually just ignored that and took the pawn. However, I had something waiting for him, and the computer deems it a brilliant move. I just don't mean to pat myself on the back. Just saying. I know you guys like brilliant moves. So what move would you play here that's arguably more shocking than this move? I'll let you think a little bit and think about the variation I just showed you and keep that in mind. Okay, in this position, I played rook g6, which might be shocking to some of you. Now that you saw the variations, maybe not. But the fact is I'm not getting a piece out of it. I'm sacrificing the rook, but not getting a piece. So you might be saying, well, who cares? Like, what if he just moves away or something, right? Well, I'll get to that. First of all, in this position, my opponent took. We have check here. He came to f8, and I hit him with this very same mating pattern I just showed you, checkmate. But what if my opponent didn't take? Well, my point was, first of all, if he comes here, he's in line with my queen. We have a plethora of attacks here. Pick your poison. I can do something cool like this and take the queen, check. I can do it a different way if I don't like that. If I like my rook on the g-file, I can take the queen like that if you want. I could play the best move, which is rook f6, stopping this pawn from blocking. And the queen has to come in here. I check. Wherever the king goes, we have absolute devastation. So just to give you, what this position's, just to give you some ideas in this position, that'd be really bad. So let's say the king goes to h8. Well, then we have this check, and then we have absolute devastation, right? So let's say that my opponent plays the best move, king f8. At the very least, I'll just take this pawn. And now my rook is attacking the king. My queen's ready to jump in. I want another pawn. I'm going to probably checkmate my opponent, or he's going to have to give up even more material to avoid checkmate. And at the worst case scenario, if I miss something and he's able to stop the attack, I'm up a couple of pawns now going into an endgame. Let's say if it gets to that. It shouldn't, but let's say it does and I miss something. At least I'm up 2 pawns going into the endgame. Anyway, that's why the rook is so powerful and the rook sacrifice is so good, because it's easy to sacrifice. It's easy to give away because the rook covers so much ground. And you also have the big guy, the big lady, the queen behind you, ready to follow up with a power punch after it. So that's why the rook is an excellent piece of sacrifice, as long, of course, if it's a sound sacrifice. How do you know? You have to work on your tactics and your calculation skills. There's no shortcut. There's no shortcuts or ifs, ands, or buts about it. Anyway, if you like this video, check out this one. Get out of here. Go play some chess.